I'm home.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to 511 Media, here live with James Lindsey and Renata Da Silva. We keep coming back at you with more and more content, but we're enjoying this day
amazing.
2 of Believers Summit 2024. Awesome to have you here, bro.
Hey, yeah, this has been really great.
Yeah. You got a chance to speak today, right?
I did.
And tell us what you spoke on.
Well, I mean, I did a panel with Charlie Kirk. He sat on stage and interviewed me. He wanted me to talk about how to recognize Marxism, what are the parallels of what we are going through in the world, not just with woke, but to Marxism. We talked specifically about Vice President Kamala Harris and her infamous remark, we are able to see what can be unburdened by what has been, which she does this weird little hand thing with it when she says it.
Right.
And I said that it's unvarnished Marxism. And I gave, citations. I said, here's what Marx said in his 18th Brumaire about Louis Bonaparte. Here's what he said in the Communist Manifesto. I could have pulled out another quote. In fact, I'd meant to and forgot, from his economic philosophic manuscripts, where he compares crude communism to true communism. And true communism, he says, is the positive transcendence of private property as human self-estrangement. And it's the riddle of history solved, knowing it to be its own solution. And so you get this same idea, right? The idea is we're going to positively transcend what has been, that we have a private property organized society. We secure individual rights by securing property rights. We're going to transcend that and leave that behind so we can see a new world, a socialist world or a communist world. It's the same message. And I compared it out to the queer theory. So Jose Esteban Munoz very famously wrote a book in 2009, at least for people who've studied queer theory, where he talks about how queer is a horizon of potentiality. It's not here yet. It's always out there. But we've got to get over all the old homophobia and transphobia and genderphobia. We have to get over all the old things first so that we can have that horizon. This is all, and I mean, I didn't say this on stage, but the fact is this is religious language that they're using. What they are running is not an economic theory, and it's not social criticism. It is a fanatical religion that's hell-bent on transforming the world to what they can imagine, unburdened by what has been. In other words, unburdened by reality, unburdened by history, unburdened by human nature. And we know what will happen. All through the 20th century, these things were tried. All through the 20th century, tens or hundreds of millions of people died as these things were tried.
Do you believe this can be like a religion to them? It can be a new
religion?
It
absolutely,
is a new religion.
Absolutely. And that's, you can't understand how they behave unless you understand that they're religious fanatics. They're not just religious. They're on fire for socialism, as to kind of parallel on fire for Jesus.
That's their God.
That's right. So the perfected society, or they call it the end of history, is what they're shooting for. And so communism is their heaven. Socialism is really it's like the liturgy of this religion. So you're going to awaken to a socialist consciousness. You're going to be reborn in the socialist faith. I mean, it's very, very tightly paralleled to everything in the basically Christian religion, because it's actually Christianity turned upside down. And so it's absolutely a religion. Its believers are religious. If you listen, say Bella Dodd, right? Bella Dodd was a communist, member of the Communist Party USA in the 1940s, and defected. And so in 1953, they put her in front of the House Committee on Un-American Activities, and they interviewed her. And you can go read it online. It's an extremely long testimony she gave. And she said that it is a religion to them. Communism is a religion to them. So in the 50s, you have communists saying it's a religion. And here we are, 70 years later. That's right.
Yeah, they're just trying to pretend like it's not. But do you think Kamala even understands the words she's saying?
Yes. Kamala's father is a Marxist. She was raised with the phrase for that is a red diaper baby. Okay. Pete Buttigieg is also a red diaper baby. Pete Buttigieg's father translated the cultural Marxist Antonio Gramsci into English at Notre Dame. It was actually Pete Buttigieg's father, Joseph, who did the translation. So Kamala Harris was raised in a Marxist environment in San Francisco by Marxist parents. If she doesn't know the theory explicitly, which I would almost promise you she does, she intuits the same way that a lot of Christians grew up around, Christian thought and biblical thought. But a lot of Christians, just to be real, haven't read the Bible. It doesn't make them any less Christian necessarily.
Right.
I mean, that's a thing you can get into. But
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that they don't express Christian sentiment and try to live out a Christian life and to the best of their limited understanding. But I think Kamala knows more than people think she does.
So she's out there saying these things. Is she trying to communicate a message to a certain group of people?
Yes. Every time she stands up there and says something like,
She's
"We can
using coded
see
language.
what that's right, it's coded language. We can see what can be unburdened by what has been." Every time she does that, she's signaling to the people who know what it means, "I'm one of you. I'm one of you."
Mm.
It's like the old saying, when the Christian persecution was going on in antiquity, that they would come up and you draw half of the fish, the ichthus, in the sand, and then the other person, if they were Christian, would draw the other half and finish the fish. Ichthus, did I say that right? I can't ever say it. However, I don't know. It's Greek. I got corrected on that recently.
I probably said it wrong too.
Yeah, I can't do it. We know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So it's a signal to people, and if you listen to her, she's always talking about equity. Equity means a administered system in which shares are adjusted so that citizens are made equal. That's socialism by definition.
Right.
She's always talking in these very clear Marxist terms. Once you know how to hear Marx, she just shouldn't come out and say, "I'm a communist."
They will never will because they want to masquerade and deceive people.
Communists need disguises until the moment they have true power, which here's your secret, good news. Since she's still using disguises, they don't have power yet. We can still stop them.
Right. But she's okay. So at least what I'm interpreting from what you're saying, she's okay with people thinking she's stupid because she's like, "I'm not stupid. I'm actually smarter than you."
As a matter of fact, I think that's exactly right. I think she's doing an act.
Yeah.
Like if you listen to her speaking, now it's hard because we just watched Biden's cognitive decline.
Yeah.
But if you listen to her speaking when she was a prosecutor versus now, or you watch any of these videos people are dredging up where she spoke anytime before she was vice president, she is not a ditzy valley girl. She is a ruthless leftist prosecutor.
Brutal.
And she's very, very sharp. So how come she's now unable? What is AI? Well, it's 2 letters. She's not stupid. She's pretending. Why? Because if you believe she's stupid, you think she can't be doing anything. She's an idiot.
You give her a pass.
That's right. Idiots can't possibly be implementing something horrible like Marxism. She's dumb. Biden's incompetent. They're totally incompetent. So then you say, what do they call it? Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by incompetence or stupidity. So you have Biden and Kamala appearing, to all appearances, to be too incompetent to implement a Marxist regime, but that's exactly what
they're doing.
So the malicious activities done by the Biden administration
was all
intentional.
Oh yeah, the destruction's on purpose. I mean, what's happening with the southern border, the skyrocketing deficit and thus debt, and the crime waves in our cities is called the Cloward-Piven strategy. It has a name. It was written out by 2 socialists, Cloward and Piven, decades ago, and they've enacted it. They know what they're doing.
And it's been something that's been going on for a long time, actually.
Absolutely.
Much longer than people realize.
Well, the subversion of the United States by communists started in 1919 at the latest. And then just for context, the Soviet Union was established in 1917. So as fast as the Communist Party took over in Soviet Union, I think it was in the same year, but it might have been 2 years later, you get the Communist Party USA. I'd have to double check the dates on that. But in Minnesota, before 1920, you already have this happening. You already have infiltration to try to subvert, to try to bring in, characters like John Dewey. There was a huge project to bring American leftists to Soviet Union and give them the tour, get them all hopped up on it, and send them back to the U.S. to now become Soviet cells and propagandists.
Destruction from within.
So what do you think's kept it at bay in America?
All this time, we've actually, I think it's honestly, everybody probably wants me to say that it's Christianity, but I actually don't think it is.
I just genuinely honestly want to know the answer.
But I'm just going to throw that out there because it's Believer Summit, because we got to pay attention. Like Catholicism got partially, not totally, but there's a co-opted section called liberation theology. There's a social gospel within the Baptist circles. Like it's actually not hard to twist Christian doctrine. Yeah. But the answer, I think, is the American dream. I think the American dream has kept communism out of this country. But what's happened is in the last 30 to 40 years, they've, through miseducating our young people, rampant destruction of the values presented in our media, they have led people to, and then the rising costs of things and so on. They've led people to believe that the American dream doesn't work.
Exactly.
And they push the racial issue. The big issue with CRT that they pushed was, well, yeah, the American dream works for some Americans, but not you because of your skin color. And the same thing with the LGBTQ plus whatever agenda.
DEI, now that
It works
implementing
great
DEI.
for you, but you're not. But it works great for everybody, I should say, but not for you because you're oppressed minority. So all of these identity politics played this American dream for everybody except the oppressed minorities. So you guys got to band together and make a new dream.
And now they're just trying to make everybody an oppressed minority.
Right. And you have an entire, not one, but at least 2 and maybe 3 generations of people who grew up poisoned against the belief in the American dream.
So what's your outlook on the future? Because I think there's a lot of people that are starting to wake up.
That I'm actually pretty optimistic, honestly, because exactly that. We started to wake up very quickly. Like I told you, Kamala Harris having to pretend, not coming out and saying she's a Marxist, even though she's clearly a Marxist, is proof that they're still in the disguises phase, which means they're still in the we don't have power phase. I know in the presidency, I know that what they control, but they don't have the power to actually unmask themselves. Some of the activists have and the universities have,
Sure.
But in the halls of power, it's all still covert. It's all still under lies. It's all plausible deniability. And so that means we have a chance. And we have seen a uprising of awakening Americans, an awakening church. I mean, Eric Metaxas is here too.
Yeah.
Of course, he's very famous for talking about Bonhoeffer, the German church during the Nazis.
Letter to American Church.
Letter to American Church. And he and I basically have had a very similar message in that regard. I used to say in a lot of my talks, other than the communists, what do all communist revolutions have in common? The people who went through them found out one day too late. And so that's what Eric's saying too. I mean, very differently and eloquently, but he's saying if we don't wake up now, we can lose everything. But we're waking up now. I mean, look, you can probably hear it in the background, like the energy.
Yes.
The energy of this place is off the charts. And they told me that at peak, 3,400 people or thereabouts registered for this. Think about that. Coming down at the end of July, taking out the time. West Palm Beach is not an inexpensive city. Showing up to see this energy and this movement. This is a rapidly growing phenomenon.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, there's been like 3,000 conferences this year.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
well, definitely election year is going to be the biggest year.
So for people to keep showing up and keep showing up and keep showing up, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Well,
we have a lot of hope.
So there's obviously people out there with voices like all of us, right? But aside from that, what can people do their part if, say they have a different calling in their life?
No, everybody's got to have their own, right? Everybody find what they do. Most people don't need to be soapboxers, right? They've got to get out. Some people are going to run for public office. Some people are going to support people who run for public office. Some people are going to make civic organizations. At the very bottom, though, the minimum, ground zero is love your country, love your kids, right? If we work hard from a place of true patriotism, loving this country, and we work hard to protect our children and instill those patriotic and the values that support the American patriotic vision, then we'll win.
Yeah. Well, I would add one to that. I would say get out there and if you're not going to make a point to go and be educated, which I think that's what you should do.
Yeah.
But if you're not, at least align with organizations like Turning Point that are doing that education for you, and go and make a point to vote because your vote matters. Every single vote matters.
Exactly.
Obviously, we've been talking for months about this red wave that's coming, and we also know that the left is going to do everything they can to cancel that vote out. Right?
They're going to fortify and fortify. That was the word they used. No, listen. If you're out there, you're the red wave. It either shows up when you show up or it doesn't show up. If you don't show up, there's no red wave. And every vote is going to count. It is absolutely crucial that you go get off the couch, get involved, and support organizations like Turning Point that are helping more people get involved.
Yeah.
People say, well, what can I do? I'm like, do you knock doors for your local patriots? Yeah. Do you help people register to vote? Do you encourage your neighbors or help your neighbors to vote? There's so many simple, just nuts and bolts things. I think Trump at one point called it swamp the vote. He was like, we got to get a lot of people out there and swamp the vote so they can't, fiddle with the numbers or ballots or whatever and make it look like they stole it.
So what would you say to someone who's like, say, living in a blue state like me, like California, and I know what I would say, but I want to hear from you what you would say, that says, well, my vote doesn't count because the state's so blue.
Well, I mean, that's... You've got to send the loudest message.
I've heard this many times. Obviously, I don't believe
No,
this.
I mean, I get it. I'm from a super conservative state. So I'm from Tennessee. So in a sense, mine doesn't either because, I
Right.
know what's going to happen, right? But no, it doesn't, because we have to send the loudest message that we can. If it's the difference between 20% and 31% or whatever the California vote
Right.
goes, that's a big signal.
Right.
And I can tell you right now that the Democrats are watching those numbers like hawks. One of their strategies is to make life intolerable in these deep blue states so that the conservatives leave. And then what they have is an even bigger margin, right? Well, what do you do when you have a huge margin and you can keep winning all your elections? Well, now you can start giving people job transfers to Pennsylvania so you can flip that state, or job transfers to Michigan so you can flip that state. But to make that happen, they need New York and California surpluses
Wow.
Yeah.
in huge numbers. So you need to stand up and fight and say, you know what? If you keep squeezing California, you're going to lose California.
Right. Well, so the other thing I would add onto that is all politics is local, right?
That's right. No, you've got to do that. Everybody's got to get as involved as you. Well, you might be the only conservative in your entire district or whatever, and you get to now have a seat at the table, and you get to throw sand in their gears, and you get to ask the impertinent questions, and you're up on the stage. I mean, just look at, I know it's a dumb example. It's just one that popped in my head, so you have to suffer it. The whole internet right now is talking about cat ladies because J.D. Vance said cat ladies in a talk like 2 years ago, right?
Makes no sense.
It turns out that you can actually make a big difference by being one person, even though they're going to send fire and brimstone at you to try to shut you down. It makes one is a very special number. It's a beacon of hope. It's a light on the hill. It's if you're zero, it's really negative.
Well, and going back to all politics is local, you're not, if you're in California, you're not going to affect the electoral vote, right? For the presidency. But you can affect the school boards. You can affect your county supervisors.
You can
affect your city officials.
You can.
Right? So all politics is local, and that all matters to our future and our kids.
It matters actually in a lot of ways more because those entities have a tremendous power to leverage against the state government.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then the state governments have a tremendous power. Look at like Missouri that's fighting back, for example. The states have a tremendous amount of power to leverage against the federal government. So you're not going to turn California on our side for that.
Right.
But you can turn your local areas more and more and more conservative, get those values back on the table, stop ceding them to leftists, and you can make a gigantic difference. I mean, there's even a huge movement now. It's got tons of money behind it, believe it or not, in San Francisco to fight back.
I heard that
If
too.
people are fighting in San Francisco, like shut up and get to work. It's everywhere.
Yeah, that's
People
awesome.
are waking up for what's happening, and your voice has been so powerful at Tip USA in all the departments, because I hear you on Tip USA, also TP Faith, going out with Charlie, and you have your own show as well.
Yeah.
So you want to talk to us a little bit about your show?
Yeah, I do a podcast. It's called the New Discourses Podcast. You can find it at newdiscourses.com. The idea with the podcast is, for me, I want to present this. I study primarily original literature, right? I read Marx. Well, you probably haven't, and you probably don't have time, and it's difficult reading. And so I realized a few years ago that if I read these sources out loud to people and explain what's being said as I go, it's a very accessible way for people to learn. Yeah. So it's like, it's not all, but most of my podcast is let's turn to the text. Let's see what they actually said. Let's see what their actual agenda is. Let's see how that matches with their actions that we see in the world.
Awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
I love that.
So newdiscourses.com.
Newdiscourses.com.
And where are you at on social media?
I am at Conceptual James on social media,
Awesome.
all over the place.
Awesome. So guys, go check out James. We're going to have more of him in the future. Thank you, James, for being on the show.
For sure. Great.
He's amazing. We love James.
Oh.
my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.
You
God
too.
bless.
Bye. Awesome.
That
As
was great.
usual.
Yeah.